Hey everybody, Derek Harp here, founder and chairman of CSA, and excited to be back with all of you. It's been a little while, and I am glad to be back here after travel and doing an event with all of you and with just a great super panel. As you probably already know, if you know these folks or any of them, they are all awesome, three awesome individuals in our industry, and today will be a lot of fun and I'm sure quite informative. So I will wait to have them introduce themselves and give you some of their background here in a few minutes. Let's go ahead and maybe knock out a couple of things. If you haven't joined us before, we are a 501(c)(6, a nonprofit professional association focused on all the different people. And today's a great conversation for this. All the different people that make up the community trying to secure control systems, industrial systems, operating technology, or OT, or Industry 4.0. There's different terms, but they all sort of point to a similar set of circumstances. Operating equipment, pumps and valves and moving parts, robotic arms, all these things, all the way down to medical devices, physical elements moving in the real world, but they're being they're getting their instructions through a wide variety of communication protocols. And so that's, our modern age, but it's introducing obviously all kinds of new constraints and risks. And the threat adversaries have not failed to pick up on that and are targeting these sort of systems more and more. So we need to support the workforce, grow this workforce, but support those that are in it. And today is one of my favorite conversations where this comes up all the time. Where do people come from and what do they need to know to become the cybersecurity OT warriors that we need? And there isn't a answer to that. And I think this is a really excellent group of individuals to get into that. So we have been growing now for 11 years. We were founded with a single meeting in Atlanta, Georgia, in 2015, and we've been growing ever since. And so we've passed about 55 or close to 55,000 people who've signed up and who said, "Hey, I'm really interested in this topic. I want to know more about it." And that's a very, very diverse group whenever we look into the data, all kinds of industries, all kinds of roles, from CEOs to students getting ready to get out of college and want to get into the space, and everybody in between. We have a global membership for $129 a year. There are 3-year memberships and lifetime memberships, which people do purchase on occasion. A whole host of benefits that we've been growing over the years. The one probably that people most associate with it is the online library. So these events are free to come to via our sponsor support. But the recordings, the on-demand recordings of now over 200 recordings, those are in the global member library. So that's sort of the differentiation. You can come to the live event, but if you want to pause and start and restart, or even use our 40 or so that have been modified for CEU on demand, if you need some extra credits that you need to turn in to maintain a certification, you can do that with some of ours in a without interacting with any of our team. But again, that's a global member benefit. We will issue those CEUs today. If you're active for over an hour, those will go out automatically. You can always reach out to us at CE or input at cs2ai.org, and multiple people will see those and can get back to you. We are sponsored, and this is a large portion of our financial support. It's how we pay our team and are able to do everything we do at CSA. And so we're super grateful to all the companies that are involved here and at Level Zero, and often is some of the same folks. It's crucial to how we operate. And so there's lots of ways to get involved if your company's not involved. It's not all big expensive sponsorships. We love all your campaigns and doing things with people, but there can be small things as well. Everything adds up, and everybody, our view is sort of everybody wins. So oh, I wasn't on the right slide, I don't think. Well, I don't know if I was on it, but anyway, they're our current sponsors. We got a repeat event coming up, only in that it's very popular and we keep getting questions about AI. We will do another live event, I'm sure soon, on the nexus of AI and how it's coming into the OT and ICS world in a variety of ways. But this is a repeat of the event with Clint Bodungeon, who, if you don't know, is just really a brilliant guy, always working on cutting edge things, very popular speaker and lecturer, and a facilitator at the Level Zero conference. So we're going to re-air that one that he did that was quite popular. But then we will be follow up with a live event with Matt Llewellyn, and this will be one of our author spotlights. We're talking about a couple of his books. Matt hasn't been on for a while. Matt is also a veteran of the space and incredibly smart guy, always delving deeper. And I'm excited to do unpack his books and his author process as well. And then, near and dear to my heart, Level Zero 2027. We are getting ahead of the game. We expect to launch the site in September, and so we should be much further ahead than we were in previous years. There's all sorts of things happening right now, sponsors and speakers all signing up, and so the dates are locked in. It is a conference week. And I just modified this slide because I didn't want anybody to get confused. The conference is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 28, 29, and 30. But there's quite a bit of activity being planned for Monday and Tuesday. And so Friday's a half day, people can get home. Monday and Tuesday are have a bunch of other things going on. Training classes that people can purchase. We're having sort of an education day. We'll have things for students and educators. I'm hoping to have an early stage day focused on that part of our ecosystem. We had a really successful panel on Tuesday night last year, just a small piece of the ecosystem, peering into the early stage part of our community. Went really, really well. So we want to expand on that on Monday. And then Tuesday, based on this huge success of our TTX, is going to be a one-day global exercise day, tabletop exercise day. And we'll be able to open up that to more folks in the community since it'll be outside the conference and conference price. It'll be either free or inexpensive. I hope free with sponsorship. So we want to include more and more people in that exercise so they can turn the light bulb on. So you can save the date now, and we'll update you. But in September, you should be able to sign up and get some of the early bird tickets. Okay. Let's do our poll. This is going to be the only poll of the day. And if I'm not mistaken, it'll give us a little bit of insight to, let's see. Oh yeah, looks like it's working. This is I was writing an article to support today's event, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I saved a bunch of the content, and I'll come out with this. But I was positing that there were sort of four maybe personas. There are clearly others, and some of you are marking other. But I was thinking in the main, people either have no experience in information technology and cybersecurity or even operating technology. They're entry level or coming from a different career path, or they have high knowledge in one and not in the other. There's a lot of those folks, or they have some balance and they're making progress in both areas. There could be other personas, but I think a lot of people maybe fall into one of those. And we're sort of going to ask our panelists today about where are people coming from? Where can they come from? Can anyone get into this? What do they have to do to prepare? So I thought it might be fun to just see where are all you? What vertical, what bucket would you put yourself in? So we've got a good quartile there, 25% engineering, safety 2%, cybersecurity IT 58%, physical security. Yeah, okay. So we'll keep measuring, I think, this and some other surveys and some other data. This is an area we're going to delve deeper into, the HR part of our situation. So let me end the poll and share the results. I'll leave those up for a minute and welcome our esteemed panel, Mark and Patrick and Christian, to come on down, so to speak, and then we'll get rolling. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Why don't we go around and I don't know how you guys encapsulate such amazing histories that you each have in 20 seconds or less, but no, go ahead and introduce yourself and give everybody a little bit of idea of what are the highlights of your journey, and that'll give context to what you're going to share today. Maybe we'll start with you, Patrick.
Sure, I'll start. Patrick Miller, I'm President and CEO of Ampyx Cyber. Been an OT since it was analog. Yeah. I remember things like pneumatic control systems and things like that. Started out in telecom. So I got my base in early SCADA because I ran a lot of the comm for it. Fast forward, spent a lot of time in the electric utility space. I was one of the original architects of NERC-CIP, and then the first NERC-CIP auditor and enforcer ever. And then since then, I was in the Department of Energy for a few years, and I've been starting and growing consulting firms after that.
Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, good morning, or afternoon, everybody. Mark Sachs, currently at the Center for Internet Security, where I'm the chief engineer, and I grew up as a civil engineer, so I did have that background. Um, in the Army for 20 years as an Army engineer. The second half of my career, they diverted me over into network operations, which is where I started to learn how to break computers and computer networks, but wearing a hard hat, still with an engineering mindset. So after a while, retired, worked at the White House for a couple of years, national security policy. This was right after September 11th, cranking out strategies and stuff for cybersecurity. And that's where I really became interested in those days. We all just called it SCADA, but it was still control systems, and the terms have evolved as the years have gone by. I did my comms time at Verizon, checked that block for about 8 years. Did my NERC time. I was the CSO for NERC for about 3 years. And today I'm kind of in a give back mode, taking all the 45 years worth of learning since walking out of college and kind of plowing it all back in now in critical infrastructure writ large, particularly in the utility sector, the rural utilities and municipal utilities.
All right. Thank you. Christian, take us away.
Man, I am just completely honored to hang out here with the three of you today. So, grew up listening to some of what each of you have added to our community, but today I have the opportunity to be responsible for the enterprise OT program at UPS. I came up starting early on at automotive side of things as a machinist. So started with building machines, cutting steel, welding, all of that fun stuff. I remember when computer networks became something that was happening with Fortune 500 companies, and started to get into it at that point and came over to UPS about 26 years ago. So I'm excited about today's conversation. Back over to you, Derek.
All right. Well, I think as everybody can tell there, that is a great diversity of backgrounds and length of number of years. Let's just jump into it. Submit questions. We've got some starter questions, and we got things that we know from past events people want to know. We'll start into those, but this is your opportunity to ask these three gentlemen, anything really about this. Obviously, we're trying to stay within the HR part of this, developing human beings to be the best they can be at protecting these systems. So maybe we'll keep the questions more or less to that, but ask away. Yeah, guys, why don't we get going? Your career paths are interesting. Can you pinpoint, I think, rather quickly, just pinpoint when this idea of securing these systems, because some people are like, well, I was all engineering and we weren't thinking about security, and some are like, well, I was in IT and then cybersecurity eventually, but I wasn't touching any kind of operating technology. When did that converge, to use a charged word, for you? When did those paths cross?
I'll go ahead and get started. For me, it was late 90s. Still in uniform, still in the Army, and this was before there was a cyber command. We had a small group of us, a joint task force, that were trying to figure out how to protect the Defense Department's networks from foreign attackers. And we got pretty good at the enterprise IT side, but there was always this little itch back there about, well, what about everything that's not enterprise IT? And most Army bases, military bases have infrastructure, much like cities and towns do. And so we were concerned about what the Russians, the Chinese, whomever, what they might do to us. So again, in those days, it was SCADA, OT, ICS. Those were yet to be terms that would evolve. But a lot of interest in it. And then, of course, post 9/11, wondering what the terrorists would do. Could they terrorize us by cutting off power, by interrupting water supply? So my interest really got started about that time, late 90s, early 2000s, and has evolved from there.
Yeah, I'll go next, I guess. In the late 80s, we then the networks were fairly new, and I was in telecom. I was also going to college for microbiology, actually, not for other things. So yeah, if you want to talk about lots of organic chemistry, I can still do that too. But a small team of us were the lab TAs at the university. And we found that other universities were breaking into our systems and were causing problems and would fork us off the entire network, and our researchers couldn't get to their papers. And so this is an early DEC alpha platform, and I learned to defend in college as a lab TA. So, yeah.
Excellent. And I was one of those painful guys in college that you were probably attempting to defend against. We didn't think of ourselves as breaking into things as much as trying to bend things to make them work for what we wanted to do. So I kind of came into the enterprise with that mindset of try to protect against that which you don't want to occur. So for me, it started relatively early on, but security was always just a part of the job. It was similar to safety. When the way we were IT and OT, what today is IT and OT, we were definitely in a battle with one another. And I would say that we were trying to protect what we had from IT, and we were trying to bend whatever IT had to do what we wanted it to do. Since then, IT and OT are much closer at UPS. We work tightly together, and I think that's a lot of our learning has accelerated when we started to work together with our IT partners. But there is a lot that IT OT convergence, as Derek decided to bring up there. There's a lot of missing gaps on the IT side that we need for OT, and there's probably equally many the other direction. But sitting on the OT side, I like to think that we know it all. So we don't, but
I think based on I was thinking about we could very easily start to get into the problem today, and we don't. I think let's not. So I think for those of you that are listening, we're going to assume most of you do know about the problem. We have many events that focus on that, and sort of this skips over that in a way by getting into what people need to know. And so you may have questions about that. Obviously, we've got this huge treasure trove of past videos. There's lots of available information, on the internet about sort of the challenges that are unique to this space. But that leads me to my first question for the panel, which is, I'm one of these people, but people say, being, let's say, having true expertise in cybersecurity for OT and ICS requires knowledge from multiple disciplines. And people have different quotients of that. And, it's really a smaller, to the relative to the workforce, a smaller number of people that have high expertise across more than one discipline, more than two. Really, if you want a true mastery of this area, it's a lot. What does that mean in practice, or is that just theoretical?
Derek, I'd love to take that one on. I think you are spot on. You need to understand the multiple disciplines, and I think you need to understand where you're coming from. That's probably the biggest thing that I could say to anybody that's looking to get into OT security as a whole. If you're coming from IT security, you understand security, but I am sure you only have a cursory understanding of what operations need may look like, what the safety need of things looks like, and what the engineering need looks like. So, my recommendation, and this is what we do have IT security professionals that we bring into the team. We try and expose them immediately to what UPS's OT environment looks like, bring them on physical tours. And then 60 to 90 days later, we have to do it again because it's kind of overwhelming. That first, week or two when you start seeing that and you start having questions that seem simple, like, why in the world would you be running Windows 95, let's say, in an environment, or some older operating system? If you're coming from IT security, that seems like a ridiculously easy thing to fix. And then you come to learn that may be an expense upwards of millions of dollars to fix a single box, and you have to put safety controls around that. So that's, the angle we go at with our InfoSec folks, with our folks that we pull out of engineering. We need to make sure that they understand safety. Most engineers do. They've been through a good amount of training, but then we have to start bringing them into some of the basic IT stuff. What is networking? How does networking work? What's the general methodology inside IT? And then we start focusing towards the information security side. And during that time, the work assignments look a little different, right? Some are going to be bringing in their expertise, but you want to make sure that you're working and doing something productive for the company that has given you this opportunity. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that we've seen over time when somebody becomes just a full-time student on the payroll. So that's a recommendation I would give back to any individual wanting to get started. Patrick,
I'll build
Mark,
on what you're saying about cross-disciplinary. This is, I think all of us that have been doing this for a while recognize you can be an expert in one area, which is fine, but you can draw some parallels to the medical community. You have people that are specialists in various areas, could be cancer, could be liver disease, whatever. And then you have general practitioners who know a little bit about everything. And those are those GPs, the ones you typically go to, your family doctors and stuff, that they know enough to figure out where the problem is. They also know that they're not a specialist in a particular area, and they know who to refer you to. And this is where in the control community, it's probably more important to know who to call, know who's the expert, know who to go to, have some general working knowledge. A lot of this is physics based. And if you're pure IT, if you come out of the enterprise security world, you're thinking of the old or the CIA triad. I shouldn't say it's old. It's the bread and butter of computer security. But it doesn't really apply so much over on the operational side, where safety and reliability are really the key things to look at. So those kind of insights and that knowledge of what can break, what can kill people is often what an IT person doesn't have. But then on the OT side, there's often a lack of understanding of the threats that are out there, the human factors. What actor, what threat group might actually target me? I'm worried about making the plant run. I'm making sure that I've got inputs and outputs, and if I'm a pulp mill, I've got plenty of trees lined up, to come in, and I've got plenty of trucks on the other end, that can take the output. I'm not worried about some stupid Russian hacker or Iranian, guy going after my water supply system. That's just not on my radar. But I think the more you can understand as an OT person, what the IT folks are worried about, and the same thing as the IT side, you can kind of get into the physical world of OT. Both parties are going to come to a much better agreement where the two systems come together, where they meet in the middle.
Yeah, I'll be the the brash one. Lose the ego. Just simply put, lose the ego.
Yep.
You may be the world's greatest expert in that thing, that tech, that protocol, whatever the hell it is. Drop your ego. And if you're on the engineering side, you may be able to engineer anything in the world with your, just with your mind and your two hands. Yes, you're really smart, but drop your ego. We've all got a lot to learn in these environments. You can't possibly know everything about all the things. Let's just be real. Most of the time, these problems happen because we have some sort of ego. We have some sort of ground we're trying to prove. Just stop it. Come at it with a learning mindset, drop the ego, and just sponge as much knowledge as you can before you touch anything. That's what you should be thinking. You got to come at it with that I am a student approach. I don't know everything. I know some things, and when it gets into my space, sure, I can answer those questions, but don't go outside those lines. I mean, because in reality, there's a lot of things in most plants. I've been in a ton of different places, and I still walk into plants, and I'm like, what the heck is that thing? I've never seen that. And I've been all over the world in every kind of facility you can imagine, and it still happens. So even experts like us here that have done a lot of things and seen a lot of things, you have to come at it with like the learning mindset and the zero ego, and show up ready to, learn and listen and talk and make relationships with the people. There's the classic phrase of seek first to understand, then to be understood. Start there, and that will get you a lot further than anything else you can ever do with a book.
This falls in this category of things I think that we'll circle back to at the end, which is probably some pragmatic, practical walkaways, because people are already asking when you get so many
Mhm.
questions. But like that right there, you let off with here's a thing that somebody could like they could think about changing today, right? There's sort of how they position themselves and how they position themselves with others, and we're going to talk about that. How do I don't know anything about the OT plant. Go down there and ask. I think if I look at those of you that I've had the pleasure of getting to know these last I don't know, then 2010, I think was when Mike Asante dragged me from, the traditional cyber world into OT. And you guys have one thing in common, a massive curiosity. How does this work? And taking
Yeah.
stuff apart and going down. And so even if you came from an IT background, some people did, I found that they ended up going down to the plants and saying, and I think this dovetails with your ego sublimation comment. They go down and say, how's this work? And the plant people want to say, the people with the operating technology want to say, and those bridges can be built. And bridge building is definitely an important theme here. No one person covers all this. It is a composite team, right? That's part of this too, right? You don't have to have, maybe back to my question, you don't have to have mastery in all the areas ever, right? You can start to pull together the pieces. I mean, the best are what? Guides, catalysts between the different parts and pieces, but there isn't a this 5-person team, we've got it covered. That's not a thing.
No.
Yep.
Any comments on how you've seen that sort of play out? That don't have to have mastery in everything. Just what do you have to have? 'Cause I
Yeah,
think
but
that's
I
what
mean,
some
what I
people.
was what I was saying earlier about, the general practitioner, you're certainly not a master, but you got to take the time to understand what's going on and constantly be learning. I think that's one of the messages you're hearing here is always have your ears open, eyes open, absorb stuff like a sponge. But learn how to ask questions and also know what you don't know. That's a trait for many people who've been doing this successfully for a while is you certainly know what you don't know, and you know who to go to and you know who to ask. But I think there's a good cultural divide that's starting to come together. But a lot of the pure IT people really do need to go work over on the OT side for a while just to become familiar with it. And then the same goes the other way. If you're on the plant side and you're running technology, on the plant side, go spend a week at the help desk and see
No.
see how painful it is over there, and bring those experiences back over to the plant. So there's benefits both directions.
Or the sock.
Or the sock,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I would add, you don't have to be a master, really. I mean, you want to, if you'll find something that is super interesting to you, and then you'll dive deep into that, and you'll get a mastery of it in a sense of that. Um, but that we're going to hear this echo just probably in every single one of us saying it. Every single answer is around just listen and learn and open your mind, because if you show up and your cup is full, you've already lost. You're not going to get very far. So you got to show up with an empty cup, ready to listen and learn as much as you can. But yeah, as the cross training, I know when I was at the utility, we had it as a mandatory thing. People had to go to the control center for several weeks. They had to go to the field, to the thermal plants, to the hydro plants for several weeks. They had to spend time in the truck, driving 3 hours in the middle of the desert to go to the site. And then, you don't touch anything. You just stand there and listen and ask. You can ask questions, and half the time you're not going to understand the answers, and that's okay. But it's not. It's not like it's not. But the lexicon is part of the thing you just pick up. You understand what those words mean, and that's a short name or a fun name they use for that device, and you'll pick it all up over time. But if you're not listening and paying attention and actually actively trying, you miss it all.
Common vocabulary, common working vocabulary. That's a big one too, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Lexicon.
vocabulary is big. Sorry,
Yeah.
Mark, I think you're speaking.
No. We're all in agreement there. The language is different everywhere, and we're all speaking English, in our world. Of course, it's the same in other languages, in German, French, Italian, Chinese, wherever you are. But the language of operations often is different from the language of threat hunting.
Yeah.
Even though you may
Can
be
I,
doing the same sort of thing, it is a different language.
I want to add one thing. In this case, it's not just the words that we use as the lexicon to get the concepts between the IT and the OT people conveyed in a meaningful way. There's that component, and then there's the actual language, because we mentioned the other languages you just went through. In German, it's there's no difference between safety and security. It's Sicherheit. Yeah. And in Sicherheit in a lot of the Nordic languages.
Yeah.
In Russian, it's безопасность. Same thing. Spanish, seguridad. It's the same thing. There is no difference between safety and security, and it's only in the context in which you're using that word the user understands it. So this is even it's a problem in English, but we actually have it easier because we have a distinction between the two. And typically, generally speaking, and correct me if he sees it differently, but safety is protecting the people from the machines, and security is protecting the machines from the people. But we don't have that distinction in other languages, so it can get even more challenging if you're not speaking English for the same issue.
Right.
So if you had to each pick, let's just say, let's do a rapid fire. We have so many questions. There's no way we're going to get through it. Here's somebody asking about a specific thing, but I think the example might be, we can answer this question, but you could also say, you know what, if you're going to really know, have a pretty good understanding of this technology or thing, I would choose this. They're saying, hey, computer programming, important for these kind of roles or not?
I'd say no. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Different?
I think, okay, so from experience, if you're going to be in IT security, let's just take that lane, you do sort of need to know how the machines work, and knowing how to program and knowing how the software works, I think is important. Now, you don't have to be a world-class programmer, but you do need to understand software and probably have some burnt fingertips on writing some code. Today, with the advent of AI and Claude and Cursor and all these other magical tools that are out there, the world is changing. So you now need to understand how AI works as part of your skill set. But a companion to that is the hardware side. You might be able to write code all day long, but if you don't understand physically how a bus is set up on a motherboard and how to solder something together, I think you're missing out. That it's rounding out over on the OT side. It's going to be the same kind of mindset, in terms of software versus hardware, relays, breakers, all the magical things that go on in the hardware world, the protective systems that protect humans from being killed. You have to understand it. So yes, I would not abandon software by any means, but a lot of people in cyber and cybersecurity tend to get more into the threat side and understanding the threat actors, and less so into what's actually making that system vulnerable. And what is it about it what is the actual vulnerability? And can we engineer something around it to protect that vulnerability versus just trying to change the code? I'm kind of getting off tangent here. I don't know if that's really where you wanted to go, Derek.
Well, I think so. A couple things that come up here: knowing what are the componentry, what are the puzzle pieces, the equipment, and communication layer. Maybe Christian, you could talk about this. Any of you can, but as just sort of sending it back to you. But I've heard many people say, "Man, I don't care what your background is, how these things are communicating." Just to differentiate from the question of programming, actual coding something, this is different. This is the communication protocols, right? And networking, and I've heard many people say, man, it doesn't matter what your background is, that would be ubiquitous. Yay, nay, disagree?
I think it's important to have the networking side of it as well. I think it's important to have the programming side. I also agree that those aren't the end all, but I think if you have those, in both cases, you have to go back to that dropping the ego piece of things, because a software developer will tell you that they can fix that water problem through software. A network person is likely to say, well, if we air gap it, but we still use a network internally, it'll be okay. And we've seen that mistake played out. There's probably nobody today that thinks that way, but I know our operators definitely love that. Their favorite thing to tell us is, well, it's not on the UPS network. Yeah, but it's on the internet. So, so understanding how that communication works, and I think physics is a good thing to understand. You don't have to be as bright as Albert Einstein in physics, but understanding that, let's say we're talking about the water side of things. Okay, we should have network controls in place if it's network connected. We should have some software controls. but can we do something at the physical level so that nobody can do anything that'll harm the water, harm the safety of the people? So it's that combination. That's the way I look at it. I do know, looking at our team, we've got folks that are going to lean towards one or the other, and we have to work as a team together through that communication to understand, hey, how can we fix this? What can we do? Um, I do think knowing AI is a good thing. Mark pulled out the AI side. I think it was Mark, might have been Patrick, that pulled out the AI side of things. Knowing how to ask it questions is super important. But because OT is so safety oriented, I think we have to make sure that we are not just accepting AI responses. But I do think that there's opportunity for us in the OT side if we have things that are common tasks that could be run through that. But time will tell on that side of things. I watched enough Terminator movies to know that I should be uh, somewhat afraid of the concept of making physical items have AI. So
Yeah,
Do you
hopefully
want to
that
add
helps.
anything?
you do have a bunch of questions about AI here, so I won't jump to that yet, Patrick. You sounds like you got another comment on that thread.
I just wanted to there isn't like one thing, like it's all the things. And unfortunately, if you're going to get if you're looking for a position in OT, you have to understand like all the things. You're picking one of the hardest possible paths, which is, don't get me wrong, it's the most rewarding path you'll ever take. I mean, it's you're literally saving human lives in a lot of cases, or keeping them alive in a lot of ways. You're upholding like entire financial structures because they have power. You're keeping everything moving, but you also have to understand the physics, as Christian mentioned, because if you don't, you're missing. You don't understand how the things are actually going to react when something cyber happens. All the way at the other end of the spectrum, you've got like a control center for anything, whether it's trains, ships, a power, water, gas. It looks exactly like IT, but it's OT, right? It's still a server. It's living in a data center. And there are engineers that are extremely skilled in physics that are masters at Excel. And they can do things with, protocols and formulas that you could never imagine. So do you pick one thing? The answer is no. You get to pick all the things, and you get to learn all the things. And that shouldn't scare you away. That should actually blow your mind and say, cool, I get to learn all the things.
Mhm.
But do you have to be a master in any of them? You'll find the one that interests you most and then go that direction. It's not like this is the thing you should master.
I'm glad we keep coming back to physics. Physics always wins, and F always equals MA. There's just no way around it.
Yes. Yes. Well, but to Christian's point, like the water systems we're looking at, there's a lot of hacks on water systems now. A lot of
Yeah.
them are already built with the physics in mind, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're worried about how much chlorine goes in the water. You could go into the control system and take the set point up to like 10 billion parts per million, just overloaded entirely. The pipe that delivers the chlorine is like super teeny tiny thin. It will physically not deliver that much chlorine.
Right.
The pump is an actual tiny, tiny little pump, which pumps from a little teeny tiny reservoir. And it's designed that way on purpose so that, heck it, okay, the maximum it can do is the maximum safe level by physical design.
Yeah. Now, don't tell the bad guys that. They're
Oh,
spending all
sorry.
this time,
Well, they're busy
going,
popping, like internet facing default creds because that's like super hacker skills.
oh yeah,
But you're
that's totally
you
elite, right?
I like the bridge you just made to maybe to CIE, and maybe we talk about that for a sec for
We should.
Love
engineers
it.
or for
Love it.
non-engineers that might be here today. They're like, oh, maybe that's something I should go look into. We
Yeah.
can engineer out, not to boil all of cyber-informed engineering into this simple statement, but that's a big leg of the stool, by the way, at the Level Zero conference. We will have more and more and more CIE content every year. The body of knowledge, a lot of people contribute to, but INL or Idaho National Laboratory is largely known for this, and Ginger
Yep.
Wright has been involved in the conference from day one. So there'll be CIE content for engineers at our conference. But your comment made me think about that. It's like we can engineer out some risk. So it can be theoretically there for the attacker, but the truth is, no, you cannot overpressurize that pressure vessel. It has a pressure
A
release
float
valve
valve.
that is not
Yeah.
connected. It's analog. It just
Yeah.
releases when the pressure gets too high. So let's design systems. Yes, we can retrofit some things, but certainly it's also designed maybe to begin with better to say these 18 risks, they just aren't possible anymore in this system.
Mhm.
That's one of the cool things about CI. The evolution of this began as a concept years and years and years ago, and it was formalized in congressional action back in the COVID year, back in
Yep.
2020, that actually mandated that we start working on it. And so INL and Ginger and team have come a really long way. So really cool guides. All this is out there on the INL website. So if you've never heard of CIE, please dig into it. But yeah, fundamentally, it's all about the advantage that an engineer brings to this situation, the insights and the knowledge that engineers have. If I'm going to put some control in there that's computerized, networked, or whatever, the engineer understands if that thing fails, that's a risk. And I can engineer my system against not only risks from earthquakes and wind load and fire and ice and humans, but risks from a digital system that I can no longer trust. And so again, physics is your friend. And you'll see countless examples if you start looking through the resource material that the CIE site has over at INL. So I think it's inl.gov/CIE. It's real easy to find.
Yeah.
But if you haven't looked there, please take some time looking into it. It's absolutely remarkable. And it doesn't say there's no role for IT or IT security. That absolutely has a role. And it's certainly not trying to make computer scientists out of engineers, nor is it trying to make engineers out of computer scientists. It's the application of engineering principles and practices towards risk management in a digital world, which is just it's a beautiful thing. And I'm so proud of the folks at INL and what they've come up with. It certainly solves a lot of our problems that we've been working on the last several decades.
Yeah. Makes our jobs easier.
It's a whole bunch of puzzle pieces. I mean, we're talking about today, right? And there's probably, maybe you could argue there's nobody that knows all of these at the highest level. There's so much you could know. And now we're talking about yet again, one more sort of area, the engineering part of it and their role in this. It's a team, right? It's a team approach. I think that the most hopeful comment I would give to anyone from any background is you're not too late to the game. There's so much we need. We're short cybersecurity people, writ large across all cybersecurity. Then, it's millions of jobs that are, or positions or people that don't exist. Within this space, it's got to be that or worse to say, how many people understand and have enough balance point between the different disciplines, not mastery, but just enough fundamental information of three or four different disciplines to be effective. But there's hope, right? There's lots of opportunities. So if you're strong in an area or two, just start augmenting that knowledge today. And there's
You're bringing up a great point, and I'll be quiet. You don't need to follow anybody else's career pathway. There are so many
Bingo.
charted paths that are
Yes.
out. Just jump in and get going.
Yeah.
Don't build a new trail. You don't need to. I mean, you can follow a little bit just to get started, but then blaze go on your own. There's so much to be done.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, if you go to the CSA website, cs2a.org, you go to the list of all the podcasts, and about 130 or 140 of them, many of them have just been career interviews where I've interviewed people. In fact, one or more of you have done them. And I have at least 100 of the 130 podcasts are people talking about, this is my journey. And it is exactly what you just said, Mark. It's very diverse. It's incredibly diverse.
Mhm.
Let's do this. This is a very specific question, but I think it'll be helpful to this person and maybe illustrative for everybody. I come from an industrial maintenance and reliability background, mechanical instrumentation, predictive maintenance. I also have a bachelor's in cybersecurity, along with a good post-graduation lab time. Always looking to learn more. This sounds great, right? Sort of mashup of different backgrounds. I hear a lot of established OT, ICS personality state that plant experience is important with getting into OT. Dovetails things you guys already shared today. I don't feel this is reflected by hiring teams. My question is, how can someone starting from his background or her background get hiring manager to give them a shot? IT training and understanding, but no work history, plenty of plant experience. So this is interesting. Hiring teams and job recs that are out there, they don't always match what we're talking about here today, do they?
No, not at all. And it is super tough to get the right people through whatever the filtering system is. Working for the small company that I work for, we get a couple of resumes every time resumes come through. I don't even see all of the resumes. From what I understand, talking to peers and talking to HR folks, there's a lot of AI that's being used to siphon through those resumes. I think probably one of the biggest things that you can do to try and get past that is get into the different events that are going on. If you're here in the Atlanta area, Level Zero was a fantastic event the last few years. I know we're excited about what it's going to look like next year. But when you're in those type of events, you can have a more one-on-one conversation with the team members and the folks. RSA is wonderful, but RSA, everybody's going to it. You're just a number type
You
thing.
and 40,000 friends. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get a lot of where I live in Huntsville, Alabama, so we're about 4 hours west of Atlanta. A lot of people here, that they're scared to death because it's a missile defense, NASA, lots of rocket scientists. How will I ever break into that unless I have 3 PhDs and I've published all these? It's like, stop already. First off, get off the keyboard, get away from all the online websites, print out your resume, put on a good looking outfit, and go knock on some doors. If you don't know where to start with your local utility. Just go ask them, hey, here's my interest, here's my background. You need a young engineer, you need somebody. That oftentimes if you approach an organization in person, you're going to get a whole lot further than if you're swamping them with electronic stuff. Because
Yeah.
exactly as Christian and others are saying, you're now up against the AI engine from hell that's sorting through thousands of automatic resumes, coming off of LinkedIn and Indeed and countless other places. I pity the HR departments, trying to get through all this stuff. So when a person shows up in person and they're looking sharp and and they want to talk to you, I'll talk to them all day long. They'll go to the front of the line for consideration. So please think of doing that. Physically go to where you'd like to work rather than doing everything online. And of course, it's a general statement. That you may have to go online for many opportunities, but
Mhm.
please, please, please go meet people face to face and do that interviewing face to face, and you'll get much, much further.
I am a huge supporter of what you just shared. Retro, old school techniques,
Yep.
handwritten letters, handwritten notes, going in person. Those are now more powerful than ever.
Yes.
And I've heard hiring managers say what comes through the HR machine, kind of like Christian was describing, it's a
Mhm.
machine, right? I mean, Christian, what do you have? 450,000 employees? It's a
Yep.
machine. And I've heard people say, yeah, there's people who've gotten directly to me. They've actually found a way to get to me and say, hey, here's who I am, and I'm passionate about it, and I want to be an OT cyber team. And
Yeah.
they've said, I would never have probably got that person wouldn't the resume wouldn't have gotten through the machine, but this person got to me. And to Marcus's point, it could have been in person at an event, but some people use other old school methodologies or ways to get connected to, and you don't have to see a job rec open. A lot of times there are jobs or there are people that are going to be transitioned out. So if you can get to hiring managers, people with director, VP, head of titles, you can just say, I don't know if you have an opening now today, but this is my background. I think that gentleman's or person's background that I shared was pretty strong, right? A heavy OT and a cybersecurity degree. I mean, there's openings for that person for sure today.
Yeah.
And definitely, you have to be honest with where you are. Um, yeah, I can't tell you how many interviews I have had in the past 5 years with folks where you ask them, "Hey, what do you like about cybersecurity? What do you like about OT?" I like everything. It's all exciting. And I'm like, you've clearly never been through governance. Um, but for me, governance isn't that exciting. It's necessary. We have to do it. We have a team of folks that get really excited about that kind of stuff. But know what you like, or
Yeah.
answer simply and honestly. I don't know. I just know I want to try and be a part of this machine. I want to try and, help out here. I loved Marcus's idea of going and talking to your local electric or utility. They most likely will have work for you. And worst case scenario, they'll have work for you that you can do for free. That if you're coming in with any security certs, or if you're coming in with an engineering degree, they'll be more than happy to find something for you to do. You're probably still going to have to run pizzas at Domino's, but that's okay for a little bit. It's not what your career can be, but it might get you started.
I'll come in at the end. The best skill you can learn that's not going to be on any of those things on the resume, and it doesn't come with certificates, and it doesn't come from a university, it's your soft skills.
Mhm.
And the only way you get that is by getting out of your chair and talking to other humans. You're not doing this with a keyboard. You're not doing it over Zoom. You have to get out and physically go face to face and talk to other humans. And it's going to be painful for a lot of people, and it's going to suck. But it is the most important skill you can possibly have. Because what it will do is when you're at that event or when you're at that location or when you're in line at the airport, I've met people in just the most random places, and they end up, we talk about what they do, and I happen to know somebody that's like, oh yeah, they need someone that does that. You should call this person. Here's their number. So you never know when this is going to happen. You have to be open to it, but being open to it means that you are soft skilled prepared to do it when that happens. So I don't know where you go learn soft skills other than just physically getting outside and speaking to other human beings. That will get you further. Christian just mentioned the interview process. You get in front of them and you freeze and you can't talk about what you like and you can't be honest and say, I'm not sure yet. I'm really hoping I'm going to find that out here, but I know I'm super passionate about figuring it out. That answer alone will take you miles beyond, this is exactly what I want to do and I know what's going on. So those soft skills, being genuine, being open, you're not going to beat that with any other machine-based approach, period.
Patrick, what you're saying is, what you know is absolutely important. You got to start building up your skills, but who you know oftentimes is what gets you the next position.
But you won't know them until you make the
That's
effort
right.
and you
You
have
got to
the
get
soft
out.
skills to
Right.
open up
Yeah,
to it. Yeah,
yeah,
you're
you
right.
got go to
Yes.
these social events, go to the networking stuff, because every job I've had, it's typically I know somebody. I'll call them, I'm ready to
Yeah.
do a career shift, or they'll call me, and it's all about knowing people. And I've done so many referrals, exactly what you were just talking about, Patrick, in terms of I'll hear of an opening, I'll know of 3 or 4 people that might be good fits for it. You're kind of the bridge maker back and forth. It comes back to you. You'll stuff will come back at you where people will think of you. Hey, I know some cool opportunity you might want to talk about. So who that networking, and definitely the get out from behind the freaking keyboard, get off that tablet, get off your phone, and print out some business cards. Don't go do what we used to call the grip and grin. Just meet people, press the flesh. Whatever analogy you want to use. I think that's the key for if you're new into this world and you really want to get your career started, you have to have those skills.
And check out the
And
chat because right now some of you are putting some great stuff in there that goes with
Yeah.
what you
yeah.
guys are saying. Toastmasters. I love that suggestion on somebody's part to say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I haven't done any public speaking. Join Toastmasters." That can be, and those chapters are everywhere. So that's a practical. Could do it tomorrow. You could join a Toastmasters chapter, and suddenly you're giving talks, you're giving test speeches before you know it. And then the other one is this study at Deloitte for soft skills, and just sort of obviously, really echoing what you guys are saying. People are writing about it, they're talking about it. These things are real. How you communicate. I've heard many people say that this comes down to being, because there are so many parties involved, communication's key. How do I tell this party in a language they understand and this party in the language they understand? Translation. I've heard some of the gurus in this space say, I think I'm just a really good translator between all these different disciplines. And I don't even know much about discipline Z, but I'm a translator and I know enough to be able to point them to the resources they need, even though I'm not saying I know all that personally. All
Translation
right,
is the most important part.
let's talk training, courses, and we'll segue to certifications, but don't go off on that path yet. People are asking about it. So what about people have said, well, where do I go and get classes on this? How do I get some education in this? There's clearly all kinds of free resources, and CSA is dedicated to that. But I think when I'm reading some of the questions, they're asking about something more formal than that. Well, there is training for this. Everybody knows well, most people probably know there's IT and cybersecurity based training has been forever, but then there is also training specific to what we're talking about today. What's the importance of going and getting any trainings, and then before we jump on it, having certifications?
You should differentiate between training and education also. Education like a college degree is not training per se. And
Yeah,
so,
good
having
point.
an undergrad in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, chemical engineering, I think that's extremely important. but that doesn't mean you've gotten the training yet on, how a plant operates or all the other things that are out there. So get a great education and always be learning. But the training, oftentimes it's hands-on. There's really no certificate involved. It's,
OJT?
OJT, there you go, experience-based training. But yeah, getting the certs, I think, is important. We get to that in a moment, but that fundamental education is important as well.
Yeah. So what about if you say on-the-job training is huge, and I agree with that, and a lot of experts would support that. What about going and taking classes somewhere? Is that important?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
community colleges have lots of really good training, vo-tech schools. If college is not for you, or I mean, online training is fine, but that in-person stuff kind of goes back to your social skills. If you go spend a night a week at the local community college or the local vo-tech school, you're going to meet people, and you also will get the hands-on. Some companies offer training, that's unique to that company. So yeah.
Yeah. There are a large number of municipal organizations out there. They're water, gas, electric, rail, you name it. They always have internships open. Like every one of them has internships open. They're notoriously cash strapped because they're a municipality and they don't want to raise tax rates and parking rates and everything's and tickets to make it more expensive for the city people. But that's how they survive, is they survive on like low cost labor, like interns. And that is a great place to go learn on the job, the real thing. And you're going to get access to things faster there because they don't have anybody else to do it. So you're going to get there quick. But municipalities are a great place to just go get an internship straight with zero experience whatsoever.
Yep.
Should we jump to certifications? Anything else on training and education you guys want to comment on, or jump to certs? I don't know.
I did want to say something. The cost of the training doesn't translate to the value of the training. Just that's an important thing to understand.
So true.
You will get value out of any training if you put yourself into it the right way. If you expect the training to transform you, you're coming at this the wrong way. There is free training, there's low-cost training, there's internships, there's vocational schools that are cheaper than some just standard certificate shops. So if you come at this with the right mindset, any training and all training will be useful to you, but you got to pick the right way and be open to it.
So wait a minute. Are you saying, Patrick, if I just say when I interview, here's 18 courses I've taken and here's 18 certifications I hold, I mean, that's it. You don't even have to finish the interview, right? I'm in.
No.
Well, let's talk about
Too bad.
certifications then, because that does get people do go in wearing 18 certifications and it's a turnoff, but there's a very real role. I mean, I'm in the field of certifications matter, but how are you using them and how are you playing it? You can not go about that the right way, which I think is the door you just opened, Patrick.
I think. Oh, sorry, Patrick.
Go ahead, Christian. No, go ahead, Christian. Yeah.
Yeah. I think certifications may help you get that interview. It may help you spark an initial conversation on things. It definitely should help you with your own self-confidence. That you know where you are. But for me, one of those things, and it ties exactly into that idea that we were talking about earlier, which is do it. So what do I mean by that? If you've got a certification class, if it's programming oriented, if it's cybersecurity oriented, what did you do with it since you got that certification? How did you build on it? And what do you have something to show? That's going to differentiate who you are. If you can explain how you implemented it at your current work, how you did, if you ended up grabbing one of those internships, how did you use that information? That is super powerful. If you're learning how to do networking, do you have a network lab at home? Do you have some old PCs? Do you have this? I'll tell you, there's PLCs on my desk at home.
Yes.
There is networking, there's, VMware, there's, Proxmox, all kinds of stuff that I have, tinkered with, tried to figure out how is it going to work? How could I apply it somewhere? When we went to level 0 last year. The crazy Dutchman brought forward LoRaWAN devices, and I'll tell you, that was one of
I'm
the
assuming you mean Vistner, right?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The Mark Visser, Brian Singer class and that device
Yeah.
that they built. They were building it in my living room the days before Mark was. Yeah, that was a real hit.
Yeah.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. We had a whole team of folks that were there, and that was one of those objects that when we came back, we said, "Hey, what can we do with it? What can we build with it?" And I wasn't looking to change UPS over to LoRaWAN technologies or anything, but I was looking for people to be excited, interested, and have the grit to do something with that device that says, "Yeah, that person is interested in technology or interested in doing things."
Yeah, the cybersecurity side, if you don't have a home hacker lab, I'll put quotes around that,
Yeah.
you're not really into cybersecurity. And it could physically be several old PCs that you've kind of built into its own little network, or it can be a larger standalone machine with VMware loaded into it, or a bunch of Docker images or whatever you're doing. But this is professional development, and if you're into IT security and you're not doing this in your spare time, evenings, weekends, at home, then I think you're really missing out. On the OT side, a little harder because now we're talking physical things. But if you've got a garage, basement, there's nothing wrong with building a little wall of stuff.
Mhm.
Put some valves and switches and things on there and see if you can break them. It's all about learning, and I really do encourage. That if you're in, you need to be all in, and it needs to kind of involve your off work time as well, your hobbies, your interests, things that you like to do in your spare time. That's the great place to grow and learn. Whatever it is that you want to learn about is be self motivated there. Somebody had asked a question in the chat about I'm in a career right now. I don't have time to be an intern. Fair enough. But if you're wanting a career change, you're going to have to make time for it. And
Yeah.
that might mean, you need to spend a lunch break down at the power company, learning how things work, or spend a Saturday over at the water utility, learning how things work. If you want a career change and you're in a full-time job, you just have to make time to learn the new skills. Or possibly you can do it with, at your employer, that do a side jobs, learning other things at your employer.
This comes to my recommendation that a speaker had last year. Join one of these committees on a standard. Don't quit your job, because
Yeah.
that's your point, right? Start doing some stuff, but maybe you can't quit your job. That's legit for some people,
Right.
family, kids.
Yeah.
You can't quit to go get a internship that doesn't pay you. Well, there's a whole myriad of things you can do besides the all-in quit. And one that I thought was made sense is all the standards bodies are looking for people, to join, and you start to not only learn about in critical stuff and the way people are thinking about it, you start networking and meeting pretty interesting people.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Very important.
Yeah, I'll add to the home lab. There's a eBay is a wealth of cheap, crappy gear. And you can buy PLCs and RTUs and FEPs and IEDs and many other OT acronyms out there for pennies. And then you can break it. And, God forbid you let the blue smoke out, you go buy another $15, $20 device and you try to let the blue smoke out of that one.
And I bet,
if you're,
Patrick, you've been dumpster diving behind factories as well, where you can find
of
things
course.
just being thrown away.
Of course you can.
Yeah.
But I mean, aside from the actual physical things that you can get relatively inexpensively on eBay, there are GitHub. There's a Don Weber. There's thousands probably resources of OT emulated components where you can literally within a laptop with minimal resources build out an entire OT network of a small factory. Maybe a manufacturing line, maybe a small water facility, and every single device is emulated and it behaves like the real one would. So when you insert a rung in the ladder logic and it screws up your process, and in theory, you get alarms everywhere because you just blew up the container, you find that out inside a machine instead. So the fact that if you can buy a crappy laptop and pull this together with a bunch of emulated stuff, even if you have a day job, this is something you can do after dinner when you're just done doing the dishes. I mean, you can tinker around with these things and learn. And if someone comes to me with a bunch of like paper creds and they haven't done this at all, even in an emulated lab, I've hired some entry level folks where they come at me and say, "Look, I've got like OT plus, and I've got built this home lab of all these things. And I'm like, how many times have you melted it down? And they're like, oh God, it was. And then they start telling stories. That is the right person. That is
Yeah.
who I want.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 Any favorite books? We haven't talked about books at all. There's a lot of books. I got my, most of those are broad-based, but I've got right here, Bachman, Freeman, Ginter, Pascal Ackerman, Ernie Hayden. There's a lot of very specific books in
Oh
this
yeah.
space. You got a favorite
Yeah.
book?
Engineering
Oh,
grade OT security. I'm looking up at my shelf up here. That's
yeah.
Andrew Ginter's book, right?
Yeah.
Bachman, Pascal,
Yeah.
anything from Clint.
Yeah.
Those are all going to be great, great resources. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I'd
It's
say, in
hard to.
fact, if you're an
We
IT background with no exposure to OT, you could pick up a couple of those books right away and be 10% into the stack of like what's all the stuff and how's it all
Mhm.
arranged? What are some of the equipment pieces? What are some of the constraints? What are some of the notable differences between IT and OT? You can get in a weekend, you can get
Yeah.
from 0% to 10% like awareness quickly.
Well,
There's an older
even if
body of knowledge also on industrial accidents and large complex systems, things that kind of predate the ITOT discussions, maybe going back into the 80s, 70s, even prior. Those are easy to find. You can get those books on eBay for $1 or $2, if not down at your local physical used bookstore. A wealth of knowledge about how big processing systems work, how accidents happen, how mistakes are made. That that is great evening reading, while you're sitting there trying to figure out something to do that's other than staring at a YouTube video or whatever you do in your evenings.
I was just going to add, if you're not a book person, because not everybody is a book
Yeah.
person, there is a really, really good set of like podcasts and things like that that are curated lists. And even if you don't understand it, write down the things that you don't, that word you didn't understand, and just go look it up. AI is
Uh-huh.
super friendly and tell you what it is, and give you physical pictures of what the things are and describe you all about it, so you can get on a rabbit hole. But there are a lot of ways. I mean, I travel a lot, and I know some people like commute back and forth to work. On your commute, you could be listening to a podcast about OT, and you may understand 10% of it, but that's 10% more you understand that day.
That's
And
right.
you'll write down the words, or you'll just, think, okay, when I get to the office, I got to look up that thing. What the heck was that? That was super interesting, and I'm curious now. But there are so many different ways. I find it hard to have an excuse to not tap into the billions of options to just start absorbing the knowledge that's out there.
Yeah.
You think about everything we've mentioned today, and we haven't even covered it all. It's a lot of different puzzle pieces. Could sound overwhelming. The truth is, right? It's a ladder, and if you climb, you could climb. Just start climbing some rungs and celebrating that. Don't think about the ultimate destination of understanding all this. And if you can only partly be partway up the ladder, and maybe Christian, you could say personally, and you guys can say on behalf of people that you consult with, there's hiring people would say you need 30% of the ladder, and I could use you. You don't need to be up here to be valuable to hiring to people who want to fill positions in the space. You need to maybe not on zero, but just start the journey.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Eric. I don't, if someone comes at me and they've got like everything, I rarely want to hire them. And I'll be honest, why? Because they come at it with too much. They're not
Mhm.
ready to, they're not willing to learn the way it's done here, or the way it's done there, or the way we think about it. They come at it with a full set of knowledge. This is how it should be done. And if you don't do it my way, then you're just stupid. In some cases, there is a way to have too much in the way. I usually hire somebody that I can tell is passionate about learning, because I know I can literally drop them into any situation, and they won't throw their arms up. They'll figure it out, and they're willing to ask questions. They're willing to go research. If they have that simple trait of I can figure it out, and I'm passionate about figuring it out, that's all I need. They can learn anything they need to learn. I look for the personality trait, not the skill set.
Mhm.
Yeah. Agreed 100% on that. Yeah. It's 100% about your eagerness to learn. And my favorite hiring word and favorite people word is this grit word. Yeah. I look for people that have grit. And something that we didn't mention here, that probably because between us we're boomers and Gen X folks. OT is not a 9 to 5 job, unfortunately. It doesn't work that way. There are days where things go well, but OT and operations in general is going to go 24/7 for the most part. Obviously, you've got to find the right balance and all that. But if you're thinking jumping into OT will get you into something that doesn't cut into your social life, it's probably not going to be the case.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I want to
machine
go
has to
back
run.
real quick to certifications before I lose the thought. I see a lot of people on LinkedIn and other places that you kind of run out of letters in the alphabet. They have so many certs listed behind their names. And then I've seen resumes, same thing, just cert after cert after, here's their name, comma, blah, 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 blah. I would highly encourage, go after certs. Absolutely. Get the alphabet soup. But when you apply for a job, only list those certs that are really relevant to what you're applying for. It's nice that you've got all this stuff, but I really want to know how much research have you done into the job you're applying for, and can you tell me enough about yourself in that first read without flooding me with all this stuff you've done? Please be precise. Remember, it's a human that's going to hire you. A human has to understand this stuff. So simplify it, make it to where, and oftentimes it's an engineer that's going to hire you. So use engineering words. Think every time you apply for a job, that cover letter is absolutely important, and you may have to have a different resume for each different job, that's finely tuned. So don't just have one big one that you always ship to everybody. So we're giving you hints and clues here about, from the other end, what we're looking for, what makes our lives a whole lot easier and more likely to hire somebody, particularly if you have 2 or 3 candidates that have the same sort of background in terms of education, training, whatnot. What's going to differentiate them is the human side and how well they're able to talk to me as their potential future boss or their hiring manager and so forth.
Yeah, we joked early on before we started when we were all together, we talked about buzzwords and words we, jokingly wouldn't use, but let's use some. Pick your favorite buzzword because this communication, using some words can actually, whether in a hiring situation or just working with your counterpart in the plant or whatever, there are some words that are charged or are off-putting for various people. So do you have a favorite buzzword that you'd recommend people don't use? And there were questions about what are the buzzwords of the industry. So I thought this was completely applicable. Favorite buzzword of the day. Least favorite, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Get out your bingo cards. Yeah. Right now, my least favorite one is machine speed.
Yeah.
Or
I still
human in the
see a
loop.
few prompt engineers floating around. As an engineer, I don't think that prompt engineering is important anymore. But
Yeah.
What
Most of the
about
terms that get on my nerves are AI terms right now.
what
But
about,
yeah.
it comes from an IT heritage. What about zero trust, which is certainly being used by some people in a significant way. It sets some people's hair on fire. What about that term?
I want 2 people to give me the same answer when I ask what zero trust means. If I can find 2 single human beings that can give me the exact same answer when I ask what zero trust means, then I'll be floored. I'll eat my hat.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a bit of a classic person. If somebody does bring up zero trust because I know the answer to the question, I'll ask them, who coined the phrase? Give me some background on this. Where did it actually come from? Don't tell me today's marketing terms, but why do we have that? What's the principle? What's the concept? Not just zero trust, but other things. What when we talk about quantum computing and post-quantum encryption, if that's in your lexicon,
Yeah.
what exactly does that mean? How does that apply to problems we're facing today? And if I can get a conversation going, it's like, okay, this person really does understand it versus listing buzzwords. So we're going to put a buzzword anywhere in a cover letter, in a resume or whatever. Make damn sure you know what it means, that you can understand its applicability to the problems we're all trying to solve today.
Good.
Please don't say double click into.
Oh man. Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
Hey, let's double click in on that. Oh my
No,
God.
stop it. It hurts.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm moving on to triple click because I really want to emphasize whatever's important. So,
Oh
Let's
man.
scroll in, buddy. Let's scroll in.
Yeah. Let's circle back. How about that?
Yeah, we'll circle back to buzzwords, in fact. So this is good.
Yeah.
This is good. But I think you guys made some great points, which is be careful of the words you use. Make sure, I think Mark's spot on. If you're going to use a word, know what it is. But maybe look into some words that are charged. There are some words that mean different things to different people or mean too many things, Patrick's
Yeah.
point. And so just being aware. And so whatever words you're going to use, it's certainly be aware of them. But some words, IT, OT convergence and other things, people just throw them out. Just look into what the contention is and what the issues are, and be able to be sensitive when you're throwing different terms around.
And Derek, let me just add one piece to that. Buzzwords and some of those words make me feel like you're a fake persona. What you're putting on is not who you really are. I'm going to hire you for who you really are, not who you want me to think you are. So it's very important to just be you. Because if they hired you for someone that you're not, you're going to hate that job.
Yeah.
I mean, you think you want that, you don't want that. That's not what you want. Go in, just be you, speak like a real human, be real, be genuine, be authentic. Don't use a bunch of crafty buzzwords because for me, frankly, it's just BS. I want to see the real authentic human behind because when things go south in OT and I got to depend on you, I need you to be the real authentic human that I know you are, not what I thought you were and you drop the ball and things go south bad. So be a real authentic human. Don't mess with that. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
So not to go into a whole other area, but we might as well touch on it. There were questions about standards and regulations, 62443 and NERC CIP. So how valuable is it for a team member to really, really understand one of those? Maybe to be quite conversant on ISA 62443. Valuable, not valuable? Where's that fit in?
Depends on your job.
Yeah.
It does. It does. It depends on your job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a recovering regulator, so I think I have to recuse myself from the question. But yeah.
No, I love it when people understand that there is a world of regulation, that compliance is important. I don't love it when somebody comes in spouting off every possible regulation you can think of or every standard you can think of, literally showing off, as to how much they've, committed to memory, but they've never worked in that world. They've never done GRC. They've never really done this stuff. On the other hand, if you've never looked at the regulatory world, if you've always been heads down, just focused on things, it is not a bad idea to pop up a little bit and go broaden your understanding into these standards, the SIP standards, and particularly if you're in bulk power. That these are things you just kind of have to know that they're out there. But unless you are a regulator or unless your job is compliance, I wouldn't go much further down the road because then you start confusing yourself and confusing the people around you. That mileage may differ. I mean, Patrick, you may think differently. Christian, you may think differently. But I would admonish people to kind of stay in your lane, but learn a little bit about the other lanes that are out there.
Just future gazing, we don't have a lot of regulation. We got NERC CIP applying to certain utilities of certain sizes. We've got
TSASDs.
Yeah, and then there's some medical device stuff now, but
a little bit, and there's some maritime, there's a few things,
but not much
aviation and rail.
Not regulation with teeth. That's a limited stack, right? There's guidance,
those are all,
and standards.
Those are all regulations with teeth. Those are all the ones I just listed.
But some of those have just popped up, right? I mean, that history of regulatory. This sector is just getting into regulations with teeth. NERC CIP has got a long history.
Yeah,
but the other ones don't have a long history yet, do they?
No, they don't. They're fairly new.
Are we going to see more? In some cases. Are we going to see more?
Well, after these water incidents from the past few weeks, I'll guarantee you we're going to start seeing more in that sector.
Yeah, you'll see more. Yeah, and if you're not in the U.S., then you've got NIS2 in the European side. South America has adopted NERC CIP, but not many others. So, global regulatory landscape, yeah. But one of the differences I'd like people to understand is there is regulation, which is tied to you must do this or you're breaking the law. And there's standards, which is this is a really good way to measure or good way to do this because we've tried all the other different ways. And this is the most successful path that we've found so far. And we wrote that down. I mean, those are two different worlds.
And if you're a licensed practitioner, professional engineer, that kind of world.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
If you're not following the standards, you can be held personally liable. If there's an accident or somebody gets killed or hurt, otherwise, you can be sued. So that's deadly serious, and PEs understand that, and others who have those professional licenses. But it does draw into question on the more computer science side, there is no equivalent. There is no personal liability. If I program a firewall incorrectly or an intrusion detection system incorrectly, or if I don't, change the password, the default passwords, there's nowhere in the law that says I can be sued over that. I might get fired. Yeah, I might lose my job. Then I'll get rehired by somebody else because I speak the language. But that's kind of one of those awkward things where the classic engineering has lots of laws in place, but the new cyber engineering, or just to coin a phrase here, often doesn't. And so that's an area I think you're going to start seeing changes in the coming years, that personal accountability and personal liability for decisions being made more on the cyber side than on the classic physics-based engineering side.
Well, I mean, a lot of the engineering side, we have the age-old phrase of, all of our safety rules are written in blood. And
Yep.
there's a reason, is that someone lost a hand or their entire body, or many people died. And on the cyber side, until we see something like that and it becomes enough of a liability and legal issue,
Yep.
we're probably not going to see that. But I do think it will eventually get there. I think we will see it at some point. I agree. But I saw people were asking, like, which ones should you look for? I mean, NIST has a great body of standards. IEC 62443 is a great body of standards. Again, not laws, they're not regulations, they're just standards. They're good ones to know, not just because you need to know the standards, but it really does help you kind of understand how the pieces fit together. So it's a good thing to just maybe read it a couple of times so you kind of understand, oh, wow, those pieces fit together that way. That connects to that. This means that happens that way. Attack and defend from MITRE. These are great things to understand how attack paths happen and what you can do to defend against them. Must you do all those things? No, but it's a good construct to help wrap your head around a framework for thinking about these things.
I would be remiss to not mention people I work for at CIS, and we're a nonprofit, is our controls,
Yes.
right? And they
Excellent
apply
set.
everywhere. I mean,
Excellent set.
you can map those controls to all sorts of, number one is asset inventory. If you're not even, that's the first step in the NIST framework and many frameworks, is knowing what you're trying to protect. And if you don't get that fundamentally, by the way, that's a great interview question. Where do I start on my journey? If your answer is not knowing what you have to protect, building an asset list or something, you fail from the get-go. So very important, exactly what you're saying. Study the NIST framework, study these other things that are out there so that you understand the body of knowledge that's behind security and behind safety and the thinking that goes into all this.
Could I boil up what you guys say to say, knowing everything about 62443, whoa, unless that really interested, you spent way too much time doing it. Oh, 62443, I haven't heard of that. Those are two very different positions you could be in.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And you should not say, if you're interested in this space, 6244 what? That's the point, right?
NERC, SIP, what is SIP?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you make it a question like we need to measure our security. We're going to try to actually start getting some metrics in. What are some frameworks that might apply to this role that you're taking? You should at least understand enough about them to know maybe this one, maybe that one. I'm kind of thinking this one for these reasons. Maybe you've got some other ideas, but you should at least have some fundamental understanding of them.
Yeah, if each of these things, regulations and standards and OT hardware and networking protocols, if those are all ladders, if you can climb to rung 1 and 2 on a bunch of them, you're in an interesting place. Even though there's so much you can learn more about each of them, you're already in an interesting place. That's a message of hope. You guys can either say no, but if that's true, that's something that maybe people can cling on to and say, okay, it seems daunting, but I could just climb up a few of those ladders and I'm already going to be I'm going to have a different conversation, whether it's in an interview or face to face or on the bus or at the airport.
Yeah.
Derek, if it means anything, I've been doing this just foot down, pedal down, as hard as I can burn myself for my entire life. I mean, since I got my hands on my first, Atari and Commodore as a child, like literally sub 10 years old, I have done as fast and as hard as I can possibly do, absorbing as much knowledge as I possibly can. And I still have a ton of things to learn. So if you think you're going to get somewhere and you're going to learn it all, good luck.
Right.
You just have that constant mindset of, I'm ready to learn this today. I want to learn that. That's interesting. Let me go learn that. That will get you everywhere. But I'm supposedly an expert in what I do, and I still learn things every day in it. So you have to come at it with that approach.
100%. just how every day has to look. Measure the day by what did I learn today. I think that's a great mantra.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And be very comfortable outside your comfort zone.
yeah,
That's right.
Mhm.
get
Mhm.
comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Yep.
And maybe a theme to end on. This has been mentioned probably. I know Patrick's talked about this in previous events, but so have others. This community is amazingly receptive to people reaching out. And so to say, well, I don't know who I would call. Who would you not call? There's all these people that you could
Call
call,
me.
and they will
Call me.
answer
I'll help.
LinkedIn messages and emails, and they will respond. I mean, to the best of their ability, have some forgiveness on people who are traveling and moving. But generally speaking, a second email that says, hey, not trying to bug you, but I really would love to ask about this. High receptivity. It's not 100%, but this community is very, very good at that.
That's right.
Thanks,
And
Mario.
also, the journey is never over. I think you're hearing this message from all of us. You're never done. You're always learning, always improving, always reaching back and helping other people. I I hope anybody that's starting this journey understands that you're not going to just jump from right out of school into, some elite position. That just doesn't happen. You make your way up through the ladder. And if you're climbing a ladder that's not kind of working out, as Derek said, there's other ladders. Just hop over to another one and start climbing it. It's after a while, you'll have climbed several ladders and you're going to have a lot of fun. You might even go back to an earlier ladder just because it's kind of fun. So it's a great career field. I appreciate everybody who's tuned in today that's curious about this and wants to learn. And
Yeah.
we're open. We want help. We want experts. The future here really does depend on those of you who are tuned in today. So please keep asking questions and use these resources that Derek and others have put together.
Well, thank you, gents. I appreciate your time today. I know everybody does. That was a really lively amount of commentary and a lot of questions, but also your common dedication, decades and decades of trying to solve a huge stack of questions, right? I mean, that's what this is. We're not going to
Derek,
arrive.
I'm going to interrupt you. We are all thanking you too, because you're
That's
pulling all
right.
of this together.
That's
You
right.
are a small operation that has thousands and thousands of members all across the world trying to help people like us get the day job done. And you have to understand, we really appreciate what you're doing as well. So thanks back at you.
Well, thank you. The CSA staff has been at it for 11 years, but those comments, those are helpful. It's just like the task of securing these systems. The community development, which I guess is what we've taken on. It's not easy either, but there's hope and there's lots of positivity and progress is being made. And so thank you for that, Patrick. All right. Well, I think either any of you want to have a parting comment? I think we're here at the end.
Get out. Get out, go do things. Go find a makerspace in your community. Look it up, find a meetup. Get out and go meet people. That's the one thing I want you to take away from this. That will take you further than all the other things.
Yep. Perfectly said.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll wrap up with everybody a couple of quick slides. So 𝐃𝐞𝐫𝐞𝐤 Academy, which is made up by CSA fellows and speakers and members coming together to create a training opportunity and training platform and courses. There's about 9 now done and available, and CSA is running a pretty big, healthy summer special. We want to get more people acquainted with it. So if you don't know what that's about, and obviously we got to finish today, just email input@cs2ai.org and we'll get you the information you need. The CSA webpage has a lot of secret goodies. There's some really interesting ingredients there. There's a couple of committee maintained databases there. And there's an industry and standards database that you can search that's indexed, and they just keep adding. They've been at it for years, and it's like anything they find in a standard or a regulation or a directive that they can tag and catalog and put in the searchable database is there. So check it out. A lot of those they're freely available. We want to give people resources. Don't forget to buy a membership. It does help. It is our number 2 growing source of financial support for the nonprofit. And it really does matter. And so if you love this event and you've been to a bunch of them and you haven't bought one, today's your day. And Level Zero Conference. This is something we'll be talking about pretty much all the time. It's each of the speakers spoke about it. They all speak at it. They've all just recently said, heck yeah, they'll be announced as part of the 2027 speaker group. It's intimate. The feedback is people get to chat in the hallway with everybody, and everybody's welcome. And there's a lot of cross-pollination. One of my favorite terms with all these different players. A lot of people sharing things and connecting. And the after action report over the months afterward is that magic is happening from those gatherings. And so plug into that, and we'll start announcing availability in September of agenda. Thank you to our sponsors. Our number one source of financial support for 501(c)(6) is sponsorship, and we couldn't do it without you. Some great events coming up. A replay of Clint's event on AI. That was very popular. You'd learn a lot, and then a live one with Matt Llewellyn, another legend in the space, a pioneer for sure. Thank you, gentlemen. I look forward to talking to you soon about our conference planning, but hopefully I'll see you all in person before too long as well.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
All right, everybody, please take this survey that'll pop out to you here. Tell us about how we did today. And then if we're not connected on LinkedIn, I invite you to connect to me. Just give me the context of how we met today and that you were here today versus some of the odd, strange reach outs that always show up from some bot somewhere. Make sure I know you were a human being here today, and I'd be glad to connect with you. And if I can connect you with other resources or be in some service to you or CSA can, just let me know. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.